Hey folks, quick little video. I've been playing around with my Xiaomi 13 Ultra, now running Android 14 and the new HyperOS. I thought I'd take a look back at Android 13 and the older MIUI on my 12S Ultra. Xiaomi HyperOS MIUI version 14.0.14. There's been a lot of praise for things like speed and responsiveness in the new animation engine, but honestly, they feel kind of the same. There's a visual continuity between these two so that if you pick up an older Xiaomi device and move to a newer Xiaomi device, that they're gonna feel like they came from the same company. Things like unlocking, and you can watch how it zooms in and all of your apps populate. So it kind of all scoops up in there. And it all kind of scooped up on there. And I'm sure I could record this with like a high-speed camera and say, oh, but look, this one's using fewer frames to do the animation is smoother, crisper. Shooting this at 60 frames per second and visually looking at this with my eyeballs, I'm not seeing tremendous differences there. So multitasking like kind of grabs from whatever app is on screen and then panels underneath. So if I do that, yeah, it kind of does the same animation that we've seen before, same animation that we've seen before. Scrolling is nice and smooth. Well, I guess there is just like a little bit more of a stop when you're scrolling. No, that's about the same. One thing we can take a look at that is different, here, let me get into my settings proper. We now have this distinct interconnectivity menu in our settings, and this is where Xiaomi is really playing hard to get their own ecosystem of software and accessories and computer integration working for their phones. I'm actually kind of interested to see how this is going to play out, where I don't have anything quite like that yet here on the 12S Ultra, but the 12S should be getting this update to HyperOS sometime soon. All of these settings to dig into and to play with. Apps, home screen plus, clipboard. This is always going to be handy where you can copy stuff on your clipboard and move it between devices. Then notifications that are being sent to other devices like computers or tablets. And it looks like Xiaomi's really going to be working their own car solution too, where I feel like there still have been some teething pains for things like Android Auto. I still regularly hear complaints from my friends that it's not as seamless or it's not as consistent a car solution as it should be. The other thing that's just kind of fun to play with when we look at the wallpapers and personalizations, the menus haven't changed tremendously, but I do kind of like the layout a little bit better. I do like the integration where right from this menu, we get more options now in HyperOS to start customizing our phones. I kind of like that it's just a more immediate scroll. I mean, it's a little TikTok-y, right? This catches your eye, you know something's down here, you start scrolling through different themes. I caught a lot of posts talking about, oh, the new customizations for lock screens and your always on displays, and that's another one where I don't really feel it's changed tremendously from the previous version of MIUI. For sure, all of those menu settings very similar, but the one thing that we can point to, the one thing that is new, I'm in my lock screen, I can long press on this, I'm gonna put in my super secret code 12345. And now we get this customized lock screen. This feels a little Apple-y, but I do think it is kind of fun when you can turn something more into a gesture as opposed to digging. Like we saw, like if you dig 3 menus deep in your settings, you still arrive at something that's very similar to MIUI. Here, I think folks are more apt to play with some of these different, I don't really customize a lot of this stuff. I wear a smartwatch. But for the folks who really do get into their always on display capabilities and their screen notification capabilities, having something lock screeny that you can really play with. It's immediate, it's organic, it's more gestures and swipes, and you can see some really pretty stuff in here for you to dig in and really make the phone a bit more personalized. When we're talking about the new graphics engine, the new rendering, that's where these new like panel and glass effects are really gonna come into play. It's a little bit of fun just to kind of show off what this new skin on top of Android is really capable of. I've always been an advocate for folks trying to get more work done directly from their phones, and the thing that helps with that is multitasking. So we open up all these panels and we can see that the apps are laid out in these sort of screenshot orientations. But say I want to split screen 2 apps. This is one of those things where every phone does this a little bit differently. Some you have to long press on icons. I like how OnePlus gives you little 3-dot menus. On Xiaomi, it's a long press on the panel. So we long press and we get these little menus pop out, and now we've got options that are quickly identified. You know, you can split screen, you can go into a floating window, but now interconnectivity is also able to quickly scan for nearby devices, something that we don't have that option here on the on Android 13. I have no other devices to send this to, but if you have a few other Xiaomi products, again, like Nearby Share or Android Beam, you know, stuff like this just kind of helps streamline the process of getting people to use more stuff deep into the weeds here. But the animations for split screening are also just a little nicer too. So we long press, we get our split screen, get our split screen. And so here we've seen that the app has already slid up, and now I can see the other apps that I might want to use. Here we've just got a placeholder. So now I tap on my file explorer and everything lines back up. Same thing, ditto here. We can move and resize, and this is all real handy. It kind of goes by quarters of your display, so I'm gonna put it back to half. But there's also this cute little 3-button menu, and now we've got more options to immediately flip into full screen, do a different split for top and bottom, or go into a floating presentation of this app. Tap that again, go back into a top dock, and then let's say, hey, I want to make that just the top third. This is a nice fluid addition to how sort of rudimentary the split screen multitasking is in Android. We definitely could use a little bit more, because this to me feels like kind of a Windows 11 Snap style interface. It's something that I would have expected to see on like a Surface Duo. I feel like Google really has kind of neglected the full functionality of how people can interact with this stuff, and anything that gives us just a little bit more conveyance that there's something extra we can do, that's definitely going to get a thumbs up in my book. All right, taking a look at our photo galleries. Now what we've done is just sort of a top to bottom reorganization where our controls are now down here at the bottom. On MIUI with Android 13, I can tap the albums button and that, looks about the same. I don't really shoot a lot of portrait mode from these crazy 1-inch sensors, but I have a few samples from here. I haven't shot many from my 13 Ultra. So the organization of the photo galleries really hasn't changed, but people were saying that there are all these new features that have come to, editing photos and new AI tools. Someone please drop me a comment. I might be missing something here, but if I go into my AI tools here, they look kind of the same. Let me try a bokeh and a bokeh. Let's see if one just maybe does it faster. Actually, the 12S did that really fast. So use AI-powered background blur effects to make your subjects stand out. Yeah, oh, that's exactly the same. Let me just clear that, clear that. So that did, okay, so when we actually got into the bokeh effect, the 12S Ultra was a little bit slower. I'll give that as maybe some kind of performance improvement with this new operating system, or that might just come down to the new hardware. I need to now try this on a Xiaomi running a Dimensity 9300 or a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. But going from an 8 Plus Gen 1 to an 8 Gen 2, we did see that little uptick in how quickly it processed that bokeh mode. That is kind of fun too. We saw these effects first. I really liked the way that they were presented on Vivo devices, where it could change sort of the quality of the bokeh. But now, oh, that's cute. We can do like little stars. Look at that, my sound wave has little star bokeh. Ow, this is what I missed. Okay, so I took these selfies and you see this view, and well, obviously there's nothing on there, but shortly after I took this selfie, this new little icon popped up down here. And it's not there on the 12S Ultra, so I'm gonna tap on this. This is the new AI tool that people are talking about. Very quickly identifies a subject, and now we can tap this button and go into change background. We could do no background, that's really handy, but then I can just put stuff behind my head. I took a pretty macro photo of a leaf. I can put that, oh look at that, I'm side by side, a pretty leaf photo. Or I can go with something, just sort of a plain background color. Some really fun options to play with here, utilizing some of the AI and neural processing cores on these phones a little bit better. Okay, so I feel better. I literally found this in real time while I was doing this, but I don't believe that the selfie button shows up immediately after you take the selfie. It might take a second for the phone to kind of scan through your photos. Because sometimes you just need some zebra stripes behind your profile image. One quick one for our cameras. This one I kind of caught by accident. So I really like the layout. I actually kind of prefer the camera layout on the older Xiaomi camera apps, where you've got these top mounted panels, especially when you're shooting in landscape orientation, not in portrait orientation. But if you're shooting mostly in portrait orientation, I kind of get the folks who say, it's kind of a reach. You've got to get your thumb up there, and then you gotta, sort of reorient your hand as you're holding the phone. I honestly haven't loved how all of the panels and settings are organized on the newer Xiaomi camera apps, but at least now we've got this little flick gesture. You can't do anything right here. That doesn't mean anything. And if you flick side to side, it gives you the different camera settings that you've got docked down at the bottom. Here, I've got a flick down and it brings up the little caret toggle. So you don't have to go reaching for this tiny little button. You can flick across the screen, and then the same thing. If I want to switch to pro mode or photo mode or video mode, we now have differing functionality for swipes across and up and down. So yeah, that's gonna kind of wrap us up here. We've got Android 14 that brings some of the improvements from the Android to the Google side of this, and I like the direction that they're heading. Really, for me, this hasn't changed the sort of outward appearance tremendously. There are a few fun little additions. I like the improvements to split screen multitasking. I think a lot of folks are going to have fun just playing with their notification, their lock screen. But honestly, I'm looking at a generational improvement from 12s Ultra to 13 Ultra. And when people are like, "Oh, it just feels so much smoother," I don't know, maybe that's a perception based on using a phone with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but I'm kind of not seeing it going from an 8 Plus 1 to an 8 Gen 2. I mean, it's really going to come down to a lot of these grander claims when they talk about what's happening under the hood. I don't think Huawei ever got enough credit for how beautifully EMUI kept their devices performing, and this could be a really nice feature improvement because we're all looking at trying to hold on to our phones longer and longer and longer. So if a core feature of this new operating system, this new platform is, hey, we're really going to try and clean stuff up and keep things running smooth, especially if you spent a lot of money on your phone, where the 12s Ultra is still a beast. The 13 Ultra is going to be a champ for years to come. I want to see that the company who made the phone is not only properly supporting it with operating system updates, but is keeping the actual user experience fresh, that it's smooth, that it's clean, that it's quick. So that's our look. Going to now HyperOS on Android 14. Let me know down in the comments, what did I miss? I've absolutely missed stuff in here that might be kind of fun to play with or kind of fun to check out. And I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing if we get the same kinds of feature improvements and performance improvements when the 12s Ultra gets its update too. It's on the list of devices that are going to be getting HyperOS. When this phone gets its update, I'm going to head running off to my Patreon and I'm going to retest both of these phones for my full collection of content creation and photo editing and document and file management benchmarks, just to make sure that we're still getting the performance we had when these phones were launched brand new. We don't want to see new operating system updates slow these devices down. So folks, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All the support lately has been absolutely fantabulous. Those of you who are heading to my home site, SomeGadgetGuy.com, or clicking on links underneath my video descriptions, all of that really helps. But especially for the folks whose names might be scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon. Those folks are from patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy, directly contributing to the production of these videos. I cannot thank them enough. These videos would literally not exist without their support and their generosity. They're basically the coolest people in the tech world. So I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere. But these days I'm spending a bit more time on the Patreons. But these days I'm spending a bit more time on the Mastodons and the Threads, a little time on the Threads and the Flickrs, a little less so on the Facebooks and the Twitters. And I will catch you all on the next video.